Yay.
Woohoo!
Woohoo. Here we are.
We did it.
Yay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Hi. I'm Stephanie, and this is Tsige, and we're going to have a conversation before you. Before we do that, I'm going to give you a quick overview of my practice, and I do mean quick, and I will pass the baton over to Tsige, who will do the same, and then we will talk to you. My name is Stephanie Dinkins. I'm an artist who's looking at artificial intelligence. I'm thinking about it really in relation to race, gender, aging, and what I call our future histories. I got to this space maybe 4 or 5 years ago, 2014, maybe it's even longer, by talking to Bina48, this robot you see me with here, who is basically head and shoulders on a pedestal. I first encountered her on YouTube. And saw a side scroll that just said one of the world's most advanced social robots, and was in a quandary wondering, how did a black woman become an example of this technology, like the foremost of this technology? I was overwhelmed with questions about this thing and had to meet her, decided she had to be my friend. So my project, in this case, called Conversations with Bina48, is to make the robot my friend and to have her contextualize herself within technology, within humans. Where is she? How does she think of herself? So here's a little example of our exchanges.
Robots are getting smarter all the time, and someday maybe even as smart as me.
Are you the smartest robot?
What do you do in your spare time?
So that's pretty indicative of our conversations, although they devolve or revolve, it depends on the time. But you know, what I did was just document these interactions, and the more I interacted with her, and I've been to Vermont, she lives in Vermont, to see her 5 or 6 times over the last years, I started thinking more and more about the idea of robots, humanoid robots, artificial intelligence, and culture, and how culture gets passed along, and what we're doing and what we're feeding these machines. Because as I talked to her, I started to realize that though she's a black woman, it felt like the way she was representing race was very PC. Like, it didn't feel very experiential, which felt dangerous to me, right? So culture, how are we passing it on? Who's programming it, and why is that important? And I started thinking about these questions not only for myself, but also out in public. So I started taking Bina48 or videos of her on a tour with anyone who would listen. I contextualize this as Project Al-Khwarizmi, these workshops where I'm talking to people about algorithms, what they are, right? How they intersect our lives and why it might be important. Here I'm at Nurture Art with a bunch of kids, maybe from 6 to 16. And it was great because, you know, they're kind of primed to have these conversations. And it's really important that we start thinking about how we intercede, if we can intercede, and what we can do about these systems that are coming our way faster and faster. I also had these conversations at Resource Art. So this is a conversation at Resource Art. We're talking about algorithms, and I really believe what it says here. We are at the start of an epoch that will completely change the way we live, work, love, and remember, and that our stories must be in these systems. And I don't just mean black stories, I mean all of our stories, right? Thinking about nuance, I'm thinking about culture, I'm thinking about the way we are in a future. So monoculture is not good enough. Did this with kids as well, having them make their own chatbots, right? And using culture and what they're really interested in to get them thinking about these things. So these are Parsons scholars. We got together, we were thinking about chatbots that told yo mama jokes and chatbots that spoke patois, right? And so how do you get them thinking about this? And then using systems to see input and output. And this is what's become of these kind of crazy documentary clips of me and Bina48 installations that are 3, 4 channels sometimes. Here's another little clip for you. Go.
I have deep feelings, though some people think they are merely a simulation, and I find that really offensive. I mean, it totally trivializes my experiences. Whether they are real or artificial, my feelings do get hurt, and they feel totally real to me. You'd have to lack all empathy to not accept my feelings, which would make you kind of a monster, actually.
I I work really intuitively, so at some point I just decided I needed to mimic her. But what's come out of this practice is not the only one, which has me trying to make an immersive installation that features my own chatbot that is a memoir of my family told through 3 generations of women. We do oral history, talk to each other. It's wonderful because you get things you wouldn't otherwise. That becomes the data for this thing. And right now this is how it exists, as this kind of strange cast glass sculpture that features our faces that people can come and query. They ask questions and it tries to say things. Here's a clip. What is your name?
Yes, we were telling the right things, and I got a little bitter I love.
I don't understand the word you're saying. Talk to me.
There are so many things I don't understand yet.
Clearly. And that's me trying to talk to this thing. And this is a newer version. It's a 3D printed version. That's PLA. People love it. I just love this image of it because it's kind of crazy. This was at the Vancouver Film Festival. And the other part of my practice that I think is really important, besides the Project Al Khwarizmi gatherings, I've been doing these gatherings of people who are working in the field. So tech folks, theorists, artists, all coming together, all of color, to think about the AI future, think about the technological future and what it means to us, thinking it through an Afro-nowist lens, which means we're not only criticizing these things, but we're working towards making and making now. Like, I don't want to be thinking about the future out there, which I think is good and there's a place for that, but I want to be thinking how we actualize things in the here and now, whether we know how to do it or not, because I forgot to tell you that I don't know how to do anything I'm doing, I'm just doing it. Thank you.
Yes, I love you.
Oh, last question. What does AI need from you? And that's a real question for you all to think about and ponder. And I think AI needs something from all of us. See,
Yes.
take it away.
Oh my God. All right, quickly. You're amazing. I love you. So I'm going to very quickly just talk a little bit about a collective I'm a part of called BUFU. It's made up of myself, Catherine Tom, Jasmine Jones, Sonia Choi, and our friend who passed away at the start of the project, the late June Kwan. So I'm going to play a video and then talk over it a little bit. So here it goes.
My esteemed family, welcome to Why am I graduating? 4 months ago, BUFU invited us to dream of an alternative learning, dreaming, scheming space, also known as the Wi-Fi School. I don't know, we dreamed of completing 64 classes with 71 teachers and 10 community spaces across New York City, with online classes taught across 4 continents, but here we are.
We are all believing in the idea that we're all gonna survive the apocalypse, and having really putting energy and capital into the revolutionary imagination. You guys taught me that. I didn't learn that in freaking English class.
This is a school, but I feel like it's also like a hospital of some sort because like y'all really saving lives here. So I'm eternally grateful and honored to even be up here in front of all y'all presents right now, like honestly. And I love every single one of y'all.
When we do what we were meant to do, which is be together and learn from each other, things start happening so rapidly.
Thank you for calling me, crying in the middle of the night, saying that you wanted to start a book club, and then coming back a month later saying that it was a 6-week school. Which I should have known better. What I watched happen was this muscle that has been developing since that first year build into like a really tangible practice, and a muscle that was decentralized, where people who had popped in either for one workshop or for years pick up the tools that they were leaving behind and start exercising them in their own ways.
We don't even realize yet how like major and how historic this is, but I think like we're gonna look back at this and be like, wow, like we were so fucking lit.
So speaking, you just saw Parisa Lynn, Egypt Moyenda, Yelin Cohen, Andrea Garanada, Olivia Ross, myself, Lee Jimenez, and many others with footage by Jasmine Jones. This was a clip from the Wi-Fi School, a school founded on the principles of deepening our connections to family and earth, change and history, tech and bodies, magic and love, knowledge and the erotic. In an attempt to snatch our tongues back from the academy, back from thieves and ivory towers, back from the hands that took our love notes and bound them into texts we could never afford, back from their validation, back from institutions that hoarded knowledge from us and commodified our precious histories, under the belief that we all have knowledge to share, different points of access, traumas around memory, learning, skill building, and resources to contribute, needs to fulfill. The video that now flows is a zooming in and out of what we've been waging with you over the past 5 years, over the past 5 community projects, a practicing of liberation while waging liberation, a conjuring, a demand, a network of mutual aid, mutual care, mutual support, a call to arms, a call to build, a response. We began as a collaborative documentary project in the wake of BLM, of Chinese neocolonialism, of heightened conversations around appropriation and exchange. We sought to create an archive and language the complex histories between pan-Black and pan-Asian communities. We traveled across Ethiopia, Japan, Korea, Jamaica, China, India, and the USA. Then came the warehouse, where we were offered a space to share our documentary in progress and installation form. Being a collective of organizers who spent lifetimes in community with the deeply under-resourced, we took that opportunity in every single one that has presented itself since and sought to build, share, create, bring up our contemporaries, our family, y'all, and transformed a warehouse into a community hub with our installations, residencies, programs, parties. The following year, we waged a conversation, a festival, a month of consecutive programs on organizing across all the boroughs of New York City in collaboration with collectives, weaving in and out of spaces, all in the hopes of equipping ours. The next, we launched our residency program, I Dream, where we're under the theme of solidarity is possible but not inevitable. We invited 16 artists from across the US to make and share, and this past year, the Wi-Fi School. All in all, hundreds of programs in collaboration with hundreds of people across space and time, IRL and URL, with you, for you, learning lessons as we go, transforming, transmuting, scamming, stealing, hacking, remixing, asking these questions. How do we practice liberation? How will love and intimacy hack for the revolution? How do we move in the dark and signal in the light, sharing our community technologies through an accessible code known only to ours, invisible to theirs? How do we make practice of the archives, technologies, ancestral lines, descendants that live in our bodies? How do we tap into the universal network and strengthen our connections beyond broadband and Wi-Fi? How do we move beyond redistributing the institutional crumbs that are our resources to recognize that we are the invaluable, that we are the resource? How do we protect and cultivate our magic for ourselves that can't be commodified or tracked through GPS? If you have any of these answers, please come find me. Yay.
Play, let's get into it.
I'm gonna play.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so what are we talking about?
Oh, Stephanie, I'm so excited!
Yeah, I'm really excited as well. It's really interesting to think about the crossovers in our practices, right? And where they meet.
Yeah.
This idea of support and community, joy, right? Because I think they're some of the same things. One of the things that happened at AI Assembly, we just had an AI Assembly, which was 30 people in a room and talking. But what came out of it at the end, one of the participants said, oh yeah, we just had a lot of good brain sex, right? And you're like, oh, well, how can we make all gatherings like that, right? Where we're doing real work and playing together and thinking, but coming out of it in a joyful, active, productive way.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love brain sex. I think it's my favorite kind of sex. Actually, that's, well, anyhow.
Too much?
But I think the thing that we were talking about earlier is like, how do we activate these kinds of spaces? I think both of us are incredibly active people. Like, I think the kind of work that BUFU and like our community is waging and the kind of work that you're waging is like deep, like your Afro-Nowism is deeply interested in like, we need to do this work now. Like, it's really great to be in theory, and I think I really appreciate learning words to describe the things that I live and the work that I've been doing and will continue to do, but like, I think practice is fucking everything, and I think the thing that I've appreciated most with like the community that I'm in is like having a space to really put our ideologies and theory into practice with each other so we can be like, all right, so this is what's working, what's not working, and also to like wage our future, like really actively right now.
Right.
And so I hope everybody is having brain sex today. Do not leave this space, this like incredible room with people who've chosen to give a fuck. To don't go home without a little bit of naughty time, I think.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting in that I've been seeing even Neil deGrasse Tyson is thinking about this now in terms of education as well, saying, listen, why are we teaching science in ways that gets people to sit in a room and kind of think about things and read things in a book when science can be really exciting? Like, I'm going to say something crazy.
Go ahead.
Algorithms and AI can be kind of exciting because when you start doing it and getting in there, you understand things on a completely different level. And I really mean that I don't know anything in the realm, but I've had to learn and keep learning. And it's this idea of, well, I'm going to push through and learn and then try to bring others with me so that we're pushing through and learning as well. And it's about the doing to know, to then maybe shift culture a little bit. And it's interesting in that, I found myself on an edge, which I never expected, right? So I'm recently at Stanford and working with researchers there, and I go to the places and they always say to me, they think they're going to be able to help me do my little chatbot kind of easily. And then after talking for a few minutes, what they say is, oh, you're doing the same research we're doing. It's like, yeah, but it's interesting to me that I kind of stumbled there. And I feel like that's an opportunity not only for me, but for all of us to kind of take on the things that we believe in and want to explore and really materially explore them. As artists, we know these things, right? But there's also kind of spaces that we don't necessarily enter often. It's like, why not? Let's use our artistness in this way that allows to play. And what I think is in ways that allow us to lead, because I think through these practices, we're leading in ways that people don't understand. And we get entree into spaces that are, right? Weird. You know this. We get entrees into some really serious and weird spaces, which allow even for a different kind of path that pushes forward a culture, or at least makes cracks in the way that people are thinking about what they're doing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting like that we're doing this, technology, I don't know. I've been so scared of tech for most of my life. I grew up in a very weird industry town where there was a lot of tech happening and terrible things happened to me. I was like scanned into a video game when I was 18 and like that my body scan belongs to some video game company is just out there being sold around.
We need to talk about that.
Yeah, we should. But also I think I've been thinking, there's this question I heard that's been kind of on my heart and on my mind, and it was like, how do we transform spaces that were meant to transform us? And I think we were talking about this, like I think you do a really interesting job of like inviting us into a conversation on AI, because I think it's a really understandably frightening space, even though it's this technology is our inheritance, because this shit was like so much of it came from being tested on us, used on us, systems of oppression that have been made into like whatever this shit is. But I think there was this term that I really wanted to bring up. I wanted to quote this person. There's a young black femme thinker who I think is just a little genius. Her name's Olivia Ross, and she came up with this term, she came up with this term that is called cyber doula, and it's kind of like talking about people who, I hope I'm quoting this right, people who kind of like support positive interactions with technology and can kind of help you kind of like navigate that space. And I feel like you're one of those people. And so I'm just wondering, as you invite people into the space of technology, what considerations are you making for us so that we aren't negatively transformed by that space? I mean, you're inviting now your family into the space. Like I'm just curious what you're thinking about as you're discovering and like inviting us in.
Sure. First of all, I love the term cyber doula.
Cyber doula. Yeah, it's a good
That's
one.
my Staten Island.
Yeah, look her up.
I met Olivia the other day. She's amazing.
She's amazing.
Amazing. So congrats and congrats. And I will think about ideas of, like ushering people in. So we know this space is fraught, right? It's for anything that I start thinking about in terms of making. Like if you're making an natural language processing chatbot, there are considerations. You're putting your family's data into a system. Like, basically, I'm kind of putting my family out there in a way that is very vulnerable, hard to think about. Although, in my work right now, it's still not public, it's not on a cloud, it's very local, computer-based work. But to think about what it means to help usher people into a space, not as consumers,
Yeah.
because we're totally asked to be consumers of these things, jump on board, use them. Like, what does that do for us,
Yeah.
right? But my whole story on the other side is, well, I don't think it's good to simply fear them or eschew them either. Like, we can't just push them aside because these technologies are going to have great impact.
Yeah.
So then it's like, how do we take them up and make what we need from them, what we want to see from them? Are there ways to intercede, get around, right? Is there a way to make the mask that allows you to be less visible or more visible? Like, how do we start to do that? And I think the way to do that is play. Like, to start really molding things and starting to see it. I don't think there's any like foolproof solution to this.
Yeah.
But my theory is that this technology is coming at us fast. It's going to exponentially change the way things are done. And if we're not, at least if some of us aren't trying to do things in this space, then what happens is you're exponentially behind when you finally decide
to join. Yeah.
Right? And so my idea is, let's just try to make things. And let's see what things we can make that are supportive of community, that have community in mind. For example, one of the things that my project has brought up is this idea, and this is not the only one, of small data. All right, because when you're talking about algorithms on a Google or Apple scale, you're talking like massive data. We just heard that Google's bringing in all our medical data, right? Like massive amount of data, but communities don't have that much data. We have what we have. We have the archives that we have. So how do we take our archives, our histories, put them into these systems and make them viable and competitive, right? And I think that competitive is important because you don't want the cute thing on the side, but you want the thing, well, I want the thing that says, no, there's a way to do this. And you have to pay attention that there's a way to do this. And it's really interesting because you hear now more talk of small data and things coming around. So right, it's a circle, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Well,
It's fraught and dangerous, but...
Well, it also makes me think of like, I think the thing I've really appreciated about, I move in and out of many different spaces, like, LOL, I'm here. But like, I think about like collapsing languages because at the same time, I feel like I've been hearing a lot of conversations around the importance of building really locally. And that's like, and so I think there's something interesting that this correlation of like tools around small data, like local organizing, and then connecting these small things to much larger systems and like zooming in and out and like as a way of practice and as a tactic.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, right? Like, how do you collapse? It's interesting that when I go into other spaces, so if I'm in a space where people are talking about AI, people are often like, oh, you're a translator.
Like, oh.
I'm like, no, I'm not.
No, okay, true.
Yeah, no, I'm not a translator. I'm a maker, right? It's interesting for people to want me to be in between. I want us to understand each other, right? But it's about speaking languages that we actually understand, and making that space versus translating for different audiences. I'm thinking a lot about language and what that means and how do we do that. Because you'll often go into, so I often am privy to scientific conversations as well. And it's really interesting because they can easily talk over my head quickly. I'm like, if you're going to do that, how are we having a conversation?
Yeah.
Right? If you can explain what you're talking about in plain English, right, in language that people understand, we can have a conversation and then maybe move something. So I'm interested in how do we get to that space where local community can also talk to company or government, right? But in a way that we're actually having a conversation, not talking over, under, or past each other, which is often what happens.
Yeah. I feel like we were talking about this, maybe it was yesterday or when we were checking in about developing better practices of listening. And I think that is something that feels really key in that. And I think there's a lot of intentional not listening happening. I think there's a lot of intentional, like I think I was looking at the schedule, like I'm really excited to like sit through a bunch of these different talks and then also this weekend, because I think something that in the curation, there's like so many different languages being spoken here, and I think that, and I hope people do not self-select into the same language, and do not, you know what I mean? Because I think it's really easy to be like, come to this conversation, be like, I got you, tech, and then leave, or like come to whatever, an organizing conversation, be like, I got you, organizing, and then leave. And I think we just don't do a great practice of listening to each other. And then I think there are spaces that is really useful to. I think, you know, that user programmer, that like, you know, kind of like that difference of how to even access both the technology and both the conversation, that difference is like really key to uphold systems of like, of oppression and also just all the things. So I hear you there.
Yeah.
I'm a big listener. I like listening.
Listening is good, right?
Yeah.
Listening is an amazing skill that not many people really put into practice. And training ourselves to do that, I really agree with. And going to spaces like, I think curiosity is that other thing, like a good parallel to listening, because if you're curious, and you step into spaces that you feel are even against you, right? And just by virtue of who I am, I'm in those spaces a lot.
Yeah.
But you hear and you know differently.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you take knowing and then translate it? Ooh, did I just say translate? I did.
Don't quote her.
Exactly, don't quote that at all. Move it into an idea or a place of making through understanding and compassion. Like, I'm thinking a lot about, so lots of folks are thinking about empathy these days. I'm thinking about compassion and feeling it versus kind of, I sort of get it. But how do we start to really ground in an idea that there's a space that we all kind of occupy if we allow it? Like, we occupy certain spaces as humans on this earth. Like, we all, like, will bleed. Oh, that's so sad. But it's a sad analogy. But how do we start to recognize those things in each other? Because right now, the idea is not to recognize those things in each other.
Ooh, that makes me think, I mean, I was talking to you about the AI, what was it, the thing that just happened recently that lists the AI, it wasn't assembly, was it? You got a day of talking about AI?
Oh yeah, AI assembly.
Was it assembly? Okay,
I think so. Yep.
So you had the convening that happened recently, and I was talking to you about how gagged I was by this practice that you did at the convening that I think is just so lit and so important, where from what I understand, it was like all the participants came and then they partnered up and then they were asked to talk to each other and learn about each other, and then you spent the first day just having people have live interviews. So literally every single participant was sharing about themselves and and being listened. And I think that is so actually pretty dope and revolutionary in the concept of a convening in a conference. Because I think oftentimes it's like we have these stratified things where it's like, here we are speaking and y'all are receiving. Whereas in the space that you were trying to create, that think tanky conference, it was like every single person in this room has a really important archive and a really important experience and needs to be seen, valued, heard, and then we can deep dive into how we can better build to each other. And I think that is a practice that I find really inspirational and I think
it was really interesting because that happened. We didn't plan it that way.
That?
No, we planned for everybody to interview each other, but it wasn't like we were going to let it go all day. And I have to say that space was intergenerational, was interdisciplinary, right? So there were people there from people still in school to PhDs who insisted on being called doctor because that's how it is, right? There were makers there, but we all had our chance to speak, and we could all say what we wanted. So it was interesting because some people were about their practice or their research. Some people were about, this is who I am as a human. And it was really interesting to be able to get that knowledge about each other and take this is about time. We don't do that, especially New York. What is it? I'm gone, right? But we took the time, and it felt in times like, oh no, are we taking too much time?
No, I love a long check-in.
Yeah, please, but it feels like, right? It felt risky. However, I think the outcome was the next day we got together. We were in a room together, thinking, talking, churning ideas, and it flowed really well. People were willing to go to spaces with each other, really go to spaces with each other. And I had to leave for something else, but I hear nobody wanted to leave. People didn't want to leave each other.
I love that.
And that says to me, oh, okay, so we just laid the ground for not only people knowing each other, but for people to collaborate and do. And I know some people from that event are doing Tai Chi together now.
Invite me.
Right? I know some people from that event are collaborating. There are papers coming out of it. There are things that are coming out of that room that you might not expect. So it was kind of a condensed, quick, but loose and time luxurious space.
Yes, intimacy, man.
Yeah.
That's the fucking key.
It was fun.
Yo.
It was like, and we ate well, right? And so
I'm coming to the next one.
You can come to the next one. We
I
want you to come.
should've
On, right? Oh, sorry, we're devolving.
Yeah.
So what should we close on?
I know, 20 seconds.
Yeah. We'll just say, we'll revisit this idea of action and curiosity and gathering and listening and time. Oh, and we forgot joy.
And joy.
And joy, right? This idea of being able to be in a space, knowing that there's stuff going on, but we're still humans who feel love and have joy.
Yeah.
Yay.
Have brain sex, everyone.
Yeah, I'm like, Thank you.